Hi, everybody. I did not record our class meeting this morning, so by request, I'm going to go ahead and go over that material again. That way, if you need a refresher on what we said, or if you weren't there, then you can see what happened in class. And from now on, I'll try and remember to record these class sessions. So what we went over is your assignments for this week, which will be in HTML. Here we go. Okay, so I have not completely set this up yet. I don't have all my due dates ready, but let me show you my screen. All right, so this is the middle section, and as you can see, it's got a lot of topics. Those will have to be renamed, but each week we will cover a topic, and there'll be generally 2 assignments. This week we're going to do HTML introduction. It has 2 assignments in it. You have the intro to HTML tutorials on Khan Academy, and then you're going to create your own HTML document through HTML assignment 1. So both of those will be due on Thursdays. All your assignments will be due Thursdays at 11 a.m. So right before the next class meeting, your assignment from the previous week will be due. We're going to go over this class lesson just to show you, introduce some of these topics, let you create your first HTML page. And then you're going to go into Khan Academy and do these 2 assignments. So the blue ones are the assignments. Intro to HTML, do that first. And you're going to be completing 10 exercises on the Khan site, starting with Welcome to the World and ending with Challenge a Picture Perfect Road Trip. Make sure you complete all of the steps. They should be fully blue. If you've completed it and it's still showing as not fully blue, you might want to just log out and log back in or try a different browser. Sometimes it glitches like that, but if you completed it, usually it shows completed on my end. So that's the Khan assignment. That's one assignment, is to finish those 10 exercises and make sure you click done when you finished. There's nothing to turn in for that assignment because I will just go on the Khan site and print out a report that shows all the work that everyone's done and what you've completed. The second assignment, though, is going to be a little bit different. You're going to be creating a web page from scratch, which Khan doesn't really teach you how to do. Let me open this up. So you're going to use a text editor, and if you have a PC, then Notepad comes with your computer, and it is a text editor you can use to write this code. If you have a Mac, then TextEdit is what you're going to use. And you have to use a text editor. You can't use word processing software. It will mess it up and add extra code to it. So either TextEdit or Notepad, or there are some other options. I've put in this week's module text editor information that has a lot of information about free text editors that you can download that are a lot more useful than the very basic bare bones stuff. I'm going to show you. This is text editor. And create a new document, and that's what it looks like, which is fine because you're just typing just plain text. But if you use something like Sublime, which is what I prefer to use, it does color coding and lets you know if you've made an error, and it helps you out with some code hints and tips, and it'll autofill some stuff, so it saves you a lot of time and effort. I suggest using a more advanced code editor, text editor, but you can just use what comes with your computer. That's up to you. For this exercise, I'm going to be using Sublime. All right, so let me close that out. All right, and what you're going to do in this assignment is basically you're just recreating this web page right here with 3 different headings, 1, 2, 3 different paragraphs. Oops, sorry, 4 paragraphs, and then an ordered list and an unordered list, and then an image. Make sure that I know it's all well and good to go ahead and just follow the picture and follow along and create it that way, but also look at the text around this in the assignment, because there's some elements you'll need to add to your document that are not found. You can't see them on the web page. For example, the title of the page, you'll see that's what displays in the tab when you open the window in the browser, is HTML basics, so you want to add that. And then for the image, you're going to add some attributes and value. You're going to add alt text for people with screen readers who have difficulty seeing, so they'll know what the image is of. And you're going to set the width of the image to 300 pixels. All right, so let's go back to the main Moodle page for this. This is HTML introduction that you're working in this week. And I'm just going to go over this lesson with you so you can see how to create the web page. Because as I said, Khan Academy doesn't really cover how to create one from scratch. Before I get started though, let me show you what we do have in Moodle. Scroll down. We've got this lesson we're going to go over today. Got a link to Khan here, the 2 assignments in blue, and then underneath that is the image you're going to need. So you can right click on that and choose Save Image. If you don't already have a folder for your classwork in here, then I suggest you create one. Let's see, this is for the face-to-face class, so I'm just going to create a new folder and call it Docs. So all of your work will be saved separately. You can call it whatever you want. You can give it the class name. And notice that it saved it as code 1. That's because I already have downloaded a copy of this code file. So when you download it, it will just be code.jpg. And that's what you want it to be. If it does give you a number, delete any extra spaces or characters. You want your image names to be as completely error-free, short, simple, because you're going to have to type those in. So don't put anything complicated in there. All right, so you can save that, and then when you create your web page, it will display as long as you've saved it in the same location. All right, underneath that in Moodle, there are supplemental information sources that you can use. There is a lot of information on the steps to create a web page. Again, Conduct and Cover It, so it's written here, 4 steps. If you're still not sure after what we do today, and this doesn't help, there is a video that walks you literally through this assignment step by step. Another instructor created it, it's not me, but he'll tell you every step you need to do to get the assignment right. So if you get stuck, this is your best bet. And then finally, the last thing here is that information on text editors I told you about. And it just explains that you can use Notepad or TextEdit, but there are some advanced software programs that you can download for free or free to try, and you don't have to pay anything. And there's a link to a site that tells you 18 different ones. The important thing with creating web pages is you're creating a text file. You're using a text editor. By default, it will save as .txt, the extension. Web pages are one of the few programs that you can change the extension and make it into a different kind of document. So if you type test as the file name and just click save, it'll save it as test.txt and it will be a test file. But if you delete that txt and type test.html, manually put in the HTML, it will save it as a web page and you can open it in a browser. You also have the option of opening it still in your text editor so you can look at the code, but you have that new feature of opening it in a browser and displaying it. All right, and then there's some screenshots down here, more information. If you get stuck on a Mac, TextEdit has some glitches that you're going to have to work through, and I've got the fix here if it just won't save right. So all of that information will be up there. And all I want to go through right now is just this class lesson and have you create your first web page. So this is a PDF file. You could have it minimized, open it up, minimize it so you can see the instructions and follow along. And then you're going to need also a text editor. And like I said, you can use Notepad or TextEdit, but I'm going to be using Sublime. And we're basically just going to recreate the information here. So hypertext markup language is what HTML stands for. You use a text editor to create web pages because they're text-only documents. They don't have images in them. They reference images. There's 4 main things that go into them. You have a doc type declaration. That's the very first thing in there. You have HTML tags. That's these greater than, lesser than signs with words between them. Attribute value pairs, which is additional information. We're going to use some on the image. And then you got your content, the actual words and pictures and paragraphs, headings, etc. you want to appear on your page. And it's called a markup language because that's what you do. You create the page with all of the content you want, right? All your paragraphs, and then you mark it up by putting a tag on either end of it. So they're tag pairs, and that will mark it up and make it display the way you want it to. So let's recreate this here, which is just a basic web page. If you're working in Sublime, this, We're going to start with the opening bracket, exclamation mark, and in all caps, doc type. And then space, lowercase HTML, and then close that. All right, that's important first step for every web page you'll create. And then every web page you create starts after that declaration with HTML tag. And it will end with a closing HTML tag. So hit enter a couple of times and do the opening bracket, then a backslash, and then HTML. That's your closing HTML tag. So everything else will go between these. All right, and what goes between those, the web pages have two parts. There's a head part and a body part. The head part holds information about the document. The body holds everything that's in the document. So let's start by creating, and you'll notice this indentation, that's just easier for humans to read. The browser ignores all the spacing in the indentation. So that just indenting this way makes it a lot easier for you to read it and find errors. Now notice I said there was color coding and tips and stuff. I'm not getting that right now with Sublime because Sublime can be used for any type of programming. So they don't know if it's a C# document or a Java or JavaScript. So I have to let it know it's an HTML document, and then it will know what tips to give me. So I do that by saving it. So file, save. And then I'm going to find that folder I created. It's here, here, here. All right, and that's where my image is. And I'm going to give it the file name test.html, and that is the key part. All right, and once you save it, now you see the color coding comes in. Now it realizes it's an HTML document, and it can help you create that. Okay, so let's create the first part, which is the head. And nothing that you want to appear on the page should be in the head section. So just opening head tag, hit space a couple times, and let's do a closing head tag. And if you couldn't tell, that helped me out a lot. I typed the opening bracket and a backslash, and Sublime Editor realized that I was closing that tag, and it filled in the rest for me. All I had to do was hit enter. Okay, so in the head section, there's two lines we're going to add. There's a bunch of other things you can add. You can have meta tags that list your name. You can have a keyword meta tag that lists keywords, so when people search Google, they will find your page. And there's also a description meta tag, which is the content that will show when your page comes up in a search results like Google. We're just going to do these two. We're going to do a required one, just saying what character set it is. It's not really necessary to understand what that means. Just type it in each one. It's meta space char set, which is character set. And you see it gives code hints, and you can just press enter to accept them. And the type will be UTF-8. All right, and the second line we're going to enter in our head section is the title. The title of a document is what appears in the tab at the top. So let's see if I can find a web page. There we go. So right here you can see that courses 2020 CTI 110, whatever. That is what this web page has in that title section of their header. And so in our header, we are going to use the instructions back up here. We are going to use the title HTML Basics. So write the opening title tag, and then HTML Basics, and then close the tag. All right, so that's the entire head section. It's just got a meta character set and a title. All right, after the heading section, we're going to have the body section, and that's where all your content goes. So put an opening body tag in there, and then let's hit enter a few times and close it. It's a good idea to put your closing tags first before you start adding stuff inside of them, because you can forget later, and that will mess up your display. All right. Right now, this page, this first example, doesn't have any content, but if you open the page, it's going to be kind of boring because it will be a blank page. So let's just put a couple words to show up on the page. Let's have one paragraph tag, which is just the letter P in brackets, and hello world. And then \P. So you close that as well. Okay, save your changes. Excuse me. And I'm going to do Command S or Control S if you're on a PC. And now if I go to that location where I save my files, you can see that it has a little Chrome icon beside it because does have the .html. It is a web page. You can right click on this and choose open with, and you can open it with a variety of other software programs. Now you can open it with a different browser. You can also open it with a different editor if you just want to see the code view. So right click in order to get your option as to whether you want to edit it some more or you want to see it display in a browser. And I'm going to have it display in Safari, and you should see a page that just says hello world. Very blank, basic and blank because we've only got 2 words on it. But if that's working, then you are good. I'm going to minimize this. I'm not going to close it. And let's move on to the next part. This explains that, these are tags, the things between the brackets, and that you have opening and closing. There are very few tags that don't have a closing one. There's maybe 5 or 6 in all of HTML. So it's not really that difficult to remember which ones don't have closing tags. Almost everything in a web page does have a closing tag though. So the things you can add, the elements you can add to your web page are headings, which are the main topics of your page. And you can see that they go from heading 1, which is largest, all the way down to heading 6, which is small. Paragraph tag is what you'll use for most of your content. That adds a space above and below the text between them. Images are the pictures. We're going to add that code picture. And then links let you click on a word or an image and take you to another website. Those are done with anchor tags, which is just the letter A. Okay, so we're gonna do this basic website code with content using our same structure here. We're just going to change the content from hello world to something else. And that something else, to be able to see both of these at the same time, is right after the opening body tag, we're going to add a heading. So H1, and it will say heading of web page, which is not one word, but I'm going to play along. All right, and then we've already got a paragraph here. I hit tab to indent it equally. It's kind of, it bothers me when the indentation is not equal. All right, instead of saying hello world, we're going to change that to paragraph text with content. Okay, and then save, Control S. If you open your web page in the browser back up, the one that says hello world, you don't have to keep reopening your page. You can just hit refresh. And you see the large text of heading of web page, that's a heading 1, and paragraph text with content is the paragraph tag. And you see there's a space above and below it. All right, minimize that. The attribute and value pairs give you more information about a particular HTML element. Not all of them have attributes and values, but some do. For example, the image tag. The most important one, the one that is required, is source. You have to tell it what image you want to display. You can't just put an img tag up there and expect your pictures to show up. So you have to tell it the source, which is going to be the file name since it's saved in the same location. And then there's also the alt attribute. That's for screen readers. So people with messed up vision will know what the picture is of. And then we're going to set the width. And you can also set the height. There are a few other ones, but we're just going to do width, I think, just to make this easy. Okay, we'll go ahead and use the code image since we already have that. But if you wanted to try a different one, here, I'm going to go through the steps because I did that in class earlier this morning. You can just go to Google Images. So I did a puppy in class, so I'm going to do kitten. And images. All right, find the picture you want. It really doesn't matter which one. This is just so you can see how to write the code for it. You see this is a very large image. It's 1200 pixels wide by 900. You would not want to use that in your website because it takes up a lot of bandwidth. It makes your page load slower, and it will fill up your page. So we're going to make it smaller. If you were making a real website, you would want to go into Photoshop and edit it so it's smaller, so the file size gets smaller. But we're just going to change the settings and how it displays. It'll still be that big picture, but we'll tell it to only display at a smaller size. All right, so once you find the picture you want, right click on it and choose Open Image in New Tab. That's the easiest way to save a picture without getting a lot of extra content in there. And then once it's on its own and it's alone in the browser window, you can right click and choose Save Image As. And again, you can see this crazy file name it's got. Give it something simple because you're gonna have to type it. So I'm just gonna type kitten, and you can see that the file extension is .jpg. Some of the other web pages, some of the other image files that you can use are PNG or GIF or JPEG or SVC. So there's a few different image extensions. Just make sure you don't change it because it will make your file unusable. So this was a JPEG. I've renamed it to kitten.jpg. All right, I'm going to save it, and now I can use it in the web page. So before my closing body tag, after the paragraph, I'm going to start with the opening bracket and then IMG, which tells the browser to display an image, and then hit space. And then the attribute SRC is for source, equals quote, and then you give it the value, which is what the source is. And in this case, we're going to do kitten.jpg. I think I put a comma. All right, that would be enough right there. In fact, let's go ahead and type the closing thing and take a look at what this is, what it looks like. Open your, save it first, Control S, and then open your page in the browser and refresh it. And you see that giant kitten there. All right, but it is not accessible for people with disabilities. So, and it's too big. So we're going to add these other attributes and values to the image tag. All right, so the first one is the alt text. So the attribute is ALT equals quote. The value is what you want the screen reader to read. And I'm just going to put picture of kitten. You can be as detailed or just very vague as you like. It just depends on how important the picture is. If it's necessary for your content, then you want to add as much information as possible. All right, and then we're going to have one more attribute value, and that will be width. So that's just the word width spelled out, equals, quote, and then let's just put 300. And close your quote. And I think there might be something wrong with this. My color looks off, but let's test it and see if it works. Command S, and then let me look at it in the browser. Yep, something's off my code figures. Okay, body, H1, paragraph, image, source. Oh, and see what I was saying about how the color will change? See how it's all green? That's how I knew something was off, because the attribute source is green, but the value kitten is yellow. So all green means something's wrong here. And what it is I typed a dash instead of an equal sign. So that's just an example of how these fancier text editors will help you, because that might have taken me a day to actually see the difference between a dash and an equal sign. And it would have been very irritating. And here I've, for some reason, put an L in there that doesn't belong. And once it's corrected, you'll have all your attributes will be green and their values will be yellow. All right, now let me save it and see if that made the difference. There you go. And again, the picture on the server still is the same size. It's still a huge file that your user will have to download, and it might take a while to download. It might not display properly. It eats up your whole page. It's just not very resource friendly. So you should go into Photoshop and optimize your pictures when possible, and actually crop them or shrink them to a smaller size. All right, let's go back to our text editor. I can find it. That's not it. No, it's me here. Sorry about that. Okay, so that is all of the exercises here, but it shows you some of the other attributes and values you can use for pictures, and it shows you some other tags you have. Notice with image, there is no backslash image. There's no closing tag for image. It is one of those very few that doesn't have a corresponding closing tag. And another one that doesn't have a closing tag is the break, line break. If you don't want the spacing before or after your block of text, you can use a break instead of a paragraph. HR is a horizontal rule, and then of course image is showing a picture. None of those have a closing tag. And then you can also define special elements in there. You can make part of it small text. You can make it subscript. All of these are available. Let's tweak one thing, and then I want to show you the anchor tag as well, so you can create a link. So after your kitten picture, let's put in a real quick paragraph. So just a P tag, and then here is a kitten, and then backslash P, and then let's put a link to Google. All right, so you would do the opening bracket and A, that's the anchor tag. And the attribute and value that's required for here, just like image has source, A or anchor has href. href equals quote, and then you put the whole URL that you're going to. You can't just put www dot. You have to have the HTTP, etc. The easiest way to do that usually is to just go to the website and copy it. That way you won't mess anything up. But Google's pretty easy. Copy it. But you could just type http:// www.google.com or paste it. All right, and then close that bracket, and then you have to have, it's going to be marking up something what you want the user to click on, whether it's a word or a picture or whatever. Let's have it have the words visit Google, and then you close your anchor. So backslash A. All right, let's test that by saving it and then going back to the browser and refreshing it. All right, when you click the link, hopefully it works. It does. But notice it replaced our kitten page that we were working on. So there is a trick to fix that. Go back and minimize this, go into your code, and let's add one attribute and value to the anchor tag to make it open in a separate window or tab. And that is target. Put equals, quote, and then the target we want is underscore blank. And that just means it goes according to the user's settings. If they have it set up to open a new tab, then that's what it'll do. If they have their settings for their browser set up where it opens a new window, that's what it'll do. But the point is it will leave your page intact. It won't replace it with the link. So save your work, check the browser, and when you visit Google, yes, you see it's a new tab. I've still got my original page open. So that's pretty useful attribute and value there that I use in almost all of my pages because I hate to lose my content that I'm working on. All right, let's look at one more of these. Use this one. Let's put a horizontal rule in there, and then let's make part of it small text. So between the heading and the paragraph, so after that closing H1 tag, just put HR in there. That's going to put a line that goes all the way across the page. You can set the width for that attribute and value and make it, let's do that. I'm going to do width equals quote, 50%. So it takes up half the page. All right, and then I'm going to make small text out of, here's a kitten. So instead of paragraph tag, actually it's still a paragraph. I still want the space above and below it, but I can put after the P, It's just the word small. 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 And then you got to have your closing small tag. So if I put it here, then here is a kitten will all be small. If I put it here, then just the word here will be small. So I'm going to do it that way. So you can see you can layer the tags and get more and more specific with different parts of the website. Okay, let me save it. And see, they're asking me would I please like to send them some money, and not today, maybe sometime. Right, go to your page, refresh it, and you should have a 50% HR, which is a horizontal rule or a line across your page. It takes up half of the page. If you hadn't put 50%, it would go all the way across. And yeah, it's hard to see when it's just one word, but here is smaller. And you are welcome to play around with all of these other different options. And it actually is really fun to create a web page to see how you can mix and match some of this content and some of the attributes and values and make your look more and more specific. The page itself looks pretty blank. It looks pretty boring. There's no color, there's no layout, everything just by default, all your HTML elements, they just kind of stack. You have a heading, and then the next comes the HR, and then next comes the paragraph, and they just stack on each other one after the other. When we get to CSS, you'll start learning how you can add some style to it, add some color, maybe rearrange it, put it in column, make it look like a web page that you would see on your normal web browsing. But now we've got the basic web pages here. I think that was all we covered. Just in case it's not, of course, I have office hours on Tuesday from 2 to 4. There's a link. I'll put the link in your Moodle class. Right now, you've just got the link for our class meeting, I think. Let me look under course information. Yeah, I haven't put up the link for office hours. So there will be another one underneath this that you can click on Tuesdays between 2 and 4, and I will be here. And just like this morning, if you don't have a camera or don't feel comfortable using it, you can still check in with me and we can just talk, or you can use the text box and just type your question to me. So Tuesdays, 2 o'clock, and I'll put that in here. And then I'm going to be updating this as we go along, putting the actual name of the content we'll be covering, changing due dates. Everything will be due Thursday at 11 a.m. So as soon as we start a new class, all the assignments from last week should be turned in. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't record the original episode, but I hope you get something out of this. I hope people that weren't there are able to see how the class is kind of going to work. It's not super exciting me talking all by myself, but please pipe in if you've got questions. And you guys have a good week. I'll see you next Thursday.